Hello and welcome to Commerce Explained. This series is dedicated on solving Cambridge Assessment International Education papers for accounting, whose code is 7707. The purpose of this series is to make sure be able to solve these papers in the most productive manner as per the requirements of the British Council and CAIE. So we're starting with May-June 2023, which is paper 2, and as we go forward we'll be doing different questions which are available in this paper. Please make sure to hit the like, subscribe button and leave your opinions in the comment section down below. Alright, so the first question of May-June 2023 accounting paper 7707 is this. Umar is a trader. The following transactions took place in April 2023. Okay, the first thing that we always need to do is whenever we're doing a question is to read the requirements first. So it is required by us to complete Umar's cash book on the page opposite. Bring the cash book and bring down the balances on 1st May 2023. Alright, so now that we have read the requirement, we need to create a cash book and we need to bring down the balances for the required dates. So let's get into it. Alright, so let's start with the question. So we have been given some balances which is on this cash book. You can see that we have a debit balance on the cash book and we have a credit balance on the bank account. So let's start with the question. So these are the transactions. We just need to enter these transactions into the cash book and balance all this cash book. Alright, so the first things first is we have our opening balances. Of the cash we have 120 and on the credit side we have 477 as bank. This shows that we have an overdraft facility given to us by the bank. Alright, so on 3rd April we paid 1000 into the bank from using his own personal money. So we entered 1000 into the bank using our own personal money. That means that we have injected capital into the business. So April 3rd we would write capital and we would put 1000 over here in the bank column. Then on 7th April paid to a supplier Alexander by telephone transfer. Since this is a telephone transfer, which means an online facilities are given to us by bank, so this would be given to us in the bank and we'll go to the payment side. We would write April 7th and we would write Alexander and this 360. Then on 10th of April we have cash sales which should pay directly into the bank. So we would write April 10th and we would write sales which would go directly into the bank. So we would add 695 over here. Then on 12th April we purchased goods on credit from Alexander. We would not enter this transaction because this is not a cash transaction, it is rather a credit transaction, so this would not come in your cash book. Now on 15th April we paid $68 of cash for petrol. Alright, so April 15th and we would write over here petrol or fuel, which is 60 in the cash side. Alrighty, now we have 16th of April we paid rent by standing order. Again, a standing order is a direction given to the bank by us to pay a certain amount or to pay a certain utility. So then again we would deduct the amount from cash or from the bank section. So 400 as rent would be paid from the bank. Okay, furthermore we have on 23rd of April we received a check of 384 from a credit customer Esme in full settlement of an invoice of 400. So we are receiving a check of 384 but the invoice was for 400, so that means that we have allowed a discount. So I would write April 23, I would write the name of my customer and over here I would minus 384 from 400 to get my discount of $16 and I would write 384 over here as a full settlement of my balance of 400. Then 27th April states that we paid 323 by check to Alexander, having deducted $17 as cash discount. So again, we're receiving a discount of $17 and we paid 323 to Alexander using a check. So the date for this was 27th April. I would write 27th April, Alexander. I received a discount of 17. I paid 323 as my check. Then our final entry, which is a final transaction, which is 28th of April, purchase goods of 235 on credit from Alexander. Again, we would not enter this since this is not relating to any cash or bank transaction. It is a credit transaction. So there you have it. We have entered all the transactions. Now what we just have to do is we need to close these accounts. So let's get into it. Alright, so since we have our balances, we would first close off our discounts column. So we only have a single column over a single transaction over here. So this would be 16, and same goes over here. We have only one discount received, so 17. Our discounts column are closed now. Now let's get onto our cash side. Since our debit side is the heavier side, we would total this column, which would be 120. Same goes over here. Heavier side would prevail in the totals, which would leave us having a balance of 52, which would be our balance carried down. So April 30th, my balance carried down would be 52. Okay, same goes for the bank column. Let's total this down. This is 2079. Same total would come over here, and if we minus the balance, so we get a total balance of 519. So once we have our balances, so we will need to bring them down. So this would be May 1st, and our balance brought down would be, for cash it would be 52, and for bank it would be 519. So this is how our cash book would look like if we created according to the question. Alright, so now that we have done part A, let's move on to part B, where they're saying that prepare the account for Alexander for April 2023, balance the account and bring down the balances at 1st May 2023. So we need to make an account for Alexander in the books of Umar. Alright, so let's start off with this. Okay, here you can see that I have started off with this question. So we have an opening balance of 360 over here. Alright, and now we need to enter the details. So let's just do that. Okay, so first transaction that we have is on 7th of April, where we paid 360 to a supplier, Alexander, by telephone transfer. As I mentioned before, the telephone transfer means that I have made a transfer through bank. So I would enter it on the debit side. Why? Because the double entry for this would be bank credit, and Alexander's account or accounts payable account would be debited. So I would write April 7th, and I would write bank, and the value over here would be 360. Okay, after this, my second transaction over here would be on 12th of April, where I purchased goods worth 340 on credit from Alexander. So now I would come to my credit side and I would write April 12th, and I would write purchases which are of 340. The next transaction over here is 27th of April, where we paid 323 by check to Alexander, having deducted $17 as cash discount. So 323 are being paid to Alexander and we receive a discount of 17. So I would come now to my debit side again and I would write April 27th and I would write bank and the amount would be 323, whereas on the same date I would write discount received of 17. So this transaction is, and finally on 28th we purchased goods of 235 again on credit from Alexander. So again this would come on the credit side. I would again write April 28 purchases and I would write 235 as my total. Alright, so now since I've entered all the transactions over here, now we need to close the accounts to. Alright, so if I total my credit side, it would amount to 935. This means that the debit side also would have 935 on its total. Okay, alright, so the next step over here is to total our sides. So the heavier side is 935, so we write 935 on both the sides. So the second step is to find the remaining balance. So since this is the month of April, April has 30 days, I would write April 30th and my balance carried down would be 935 minus 17 minus 323 minus 360, which would give me 235. And after April we go on to May. So May 1st my balance brought down would be 235 as well, and that is it. So we would be able to capture 4 marks over here as well. Alright, so we have done part A, part B. Now we come to part C. They're saying that Umar buys all his supplies from Alexander, who does not allow Umar any trade discount. Umar is now considering also purchasing supplies from Tahir, who would offer him 3% trade discount but no cash discount. Required is advise Umar whether he should purchase supplies from Alexander only, or option 2 is purchase supplies from both Alexander and Tahir. Justify your answer by providing 3 advantages and 1 disadvantage of the option you have chosen. Alright, so since this is a question of a subjective nature, you can choose either one of the options and you can give your justifications. For example, if I were to answer this question, I would have gone with option 2. And why is that so? I would have written the following advantages and disadvantages over here as well. So, if I were to go with purchasing both from Alexander and Tahir, I would have the following benefits. So my first advantage over here would be this, that I would not be dependent on a single supplier. Alright, my second advantage over here would have been this, that I would have greater variety goods available. My third advantage of buying from both Andrew and both from Alexander Tahir would be the fact that I would be enjoying goods being purchased at a discount, or I can say that they would be purchased at a lower cost. So these three advantages could work for option 2 if I were to choose that. However, there would be a disadvantage of choosing option 2. So the disadvantage over here would be that my relationship Alexander may tarnish. Alright, so these would be the advantages and one disadvantage of this. And finally, I would have to justify, I have to give my recommendation that option B or option 2 should be chosen. Now see, how are the marks divided over here are as follows, is that I would be getting 1 mark for each of the advantage, 1 for a disadvantage, and 1 for a recommendation. So this is how I would be able to secure all of my 5 marks in this question.